Goody!
Alright, what's going on, everybody? It is Zombies here again, and today we're going to be taking a look at my games from this week's Concede Open. So, basically, if you don't know about it, the Concede podcast has a listener series for people who are fans of the show, and it is all about Mercenaries. So we are playing some opens. Basically every week you get a different opponent, and you set your lineup, choose 6 starting Mercenaries and a sideboard of 3, and then you go play your opponent. Game 1, you both choose your initial starting 6, and then games 2 and 3, you can potentially swap in Mercenaries from your sideboard. So really happy to get some more tournament play here, because I think tournaments are going to be a really key part of what kind of keeps Mercenaries successful and interesting in the long term, outside of just regular ladder play. So we can see here, I actually started with Murlocs, and if you saw recently, I did upload a team comp. This is my Murloc team comp, and unfortunately, Murlocs tend to have a hard time versus nature. One thing you're going to notice about this first game here is that we don't really have a clean way of killing the Malfurion quickly. And unfortunately, even though we do have 2 fighters lined up into their 2 casters, Malf is just providing so much healing that we really can't do a lot to the casters. So we're just trying to focus the Malf here, but it heals so much that it just feels like nature. And I felt this way about Nature Samuro as well. Feels like nature just doesn't line up very well for Murlocs. I think Murlocs can be good against some other things, but nature is not one of those things. And unfortunately, got some bad luck there, queuing Murlocs right into nature. However, a big thing about Mercenaries, especially in tournament play, is really try not to kind of tilt, keep your head in the game. Don't let a round 1 loss discourage you, because we're going to see here I do end up losing round 1 because his comp was just better positioned against my comp, and there wasn't really a whole lot I could do about it. But that's where sideboards come into play, and sideboards make everything a bit more interesting for tournament play. So I had, let's see, who did I have on my sideboard? I had Eudora, I had Jaina, and I want to say it may have been someone weird like Gruul, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look to check who my 3rd sideboard member was. I don't end up using them in the video, but I do end up, we're going to see here after game 1, I decide that the kind of lineup I want to pivot to with my sideboard is going to be the Eudora Frost opener. Now, I haven't played a whole lot with Eudora Frost before this event, so I was definitely a little bit rusty on the proper plays, but just in general, Eudora Frost I think is one of the harder comps to play fully optimally. In part because it's newer, in part because cannon positioning can be complex and annoying to fully think out each turn. It's a really fun comp, but I was a little worried that I wouldn't have the kind of skill with it to make the most optimal plays, but luckily I ended up doing pretty well with it. We're going to see game 1 of that here in just a minute, but in this game, as we can see, the opponent was just able to snowball their advantage by keeping their Malfurion alive for a long time, keeping their other units healthy, making him take longer to kill. And unfortunately, in the initial lineup here, I just didn't have strong enough casters to deal with this kind of nature opening from the opponent. But they're gonna wipe us out here, I believe, and then we're going to scoop it up and go to game 2. It really is important to keep trying, take a breath, really think about next game rather than just kind of jam a comp into it and hope it works. There's a lot more mental games here in tournament settings. So, like for example, so yeah, we're going to see my board die here. But for example, we're going to see in the intermission here, my opponent's going to mention they want to change Mercenaries. I don't know if they actually do in round one or not, because it looked like the same loadout to me. But I didn't see their full back line, so I don't really know. Here, yeah, you can see they're going to swap a couple. And we're going to swap some as well. We're going to transition away from Murlocs, and we're going to swap over to Eudora Frost opening. That definitely feels like I think it could do something against nature, assuming he keeps the nature lineup. But his sideboard for this event was actually the Beast package, so he was rocking a Rexar, a King Crush, and a Mukla as the sideboard, which is pretty cool. I think generally it might not have been the right choice for our games, but if he was kind of expecting a more caster-heavy, caster-focused meta, or like swap-in after sideboards, I could definitely see the idea for Beasts, but the meta just feels pretty hostile towards Beasts right now. But yeah, so we've got our lead here. My positioning's a little weird because, like I mentioned, I was still getting used to playing the comp. I mean, I still am getting used to playing the comp, but I definitely understand it a little bit better now than I did when I was playing these games. But I found the nice thing about Frost Eudora against a comp like this is pure nature, the only AoE they have is the mouth AoE. So they really don't have a whole lot of convenient ways to wipe your board. So as you can see, we summoned a cannon here, and we're kind of trying to punish that. Kind of, if they have to waste single target attacks on our cannons, that means our mercenaries are staying alive. So, and if they leave them alone, we get more value off Eudora. We get just general value end of turn from the cannons. But I do think the right play here is just getting that mouth gone. We saw what it was able to do last game when it kind of took over because we didn't have a powerful enough caster to stop it. But now we have Jaina, who not only is she a scaling threat on her own, but she also scales up Barden and makes him more of an actual threat rather than just an annoying slow or freeze. So the taunt on the Guff is interesting, but Guff takes a shit ton of damage. That's 50 damage, 30 from cannons, 20 from super effective Eudora. That's not an insignificant amount of damage. We have the cold snap off here, which is also pretty big. Yeah, that turn just gave us a lot of momentum. And then they sent in Cookie here, which, to be honest, I was a little surprised by. I didn't really understand this line, because I think switching in a Diablo or Karen probably would have been better. You just need something that can AoE to start dealing with this board. And we know Diablo loves taking advantage of extra tokens on the board, especially ones that will die, because it'll make him bigger. And Eudora will obviously die soon too, because she's only at 20. I think we're just going to kind of sack her off this turn by just swinging into the Cookie, but still, again, another 50 damage from Eudora. Like, that's insane. That's just, Cookie goes for the bleed, and it does have the nature buff from the Brucon, so that's one thing that's important to remember, is that the nature buff does affect that. It's easy to forget that. Alright, so we do lose a cannon and our Eudora here, but we do still get one cannon shot off, which is good. His units are really, really low on health, so if he can clean them up, I think we should be able to get into the late game here just fine and be able to outlast his assumed Karen Diablo of his own. But yeah, Eudora Frost really felt like it was a very solid kind of answer to the Pure Nature start. So I'm really happy it worked out. We're going to see here. I believe we're going to be able to snipe off most of, if not his whole board. I'm just definitely taking my time to think about things here because, especially in a tournament setting, there's no reason to rush. Like, take as much time as you need because if you make a misplay, it's a lot more impactful than if you just throw a game on ladder and move on to the next one. This is only best of 3, so, if you lose a game, that's like one of your only shots. So we do get a... Cookie gets a snipe here, which is a little annoying, because that does leave his units alive. On the flip side, though, it's not that bad for us, because now we can get some Cookie snipage of our own off. So we can kill probably the Brucon, because the nature scaling is scary. That's what I would imagine. It just threatens a lot more. And then we can just pick Cookie off of the flurry, so we don't even need to worry about him. And then Diablo can take care of Guff there. All in all, looks like a pretty solid little cleanup here. It's going to buff our Diablo, as well as buffing all our units from the Cookie Deathblow. So that should be pretty backbreaking, and should allow us to kind of close out the game here. Oh yeah, and the Frost too, so he can't even act. That's great. Very good, very good. Now, Karen Diablo probably. Yep, Diablo. I'm jelly of that skin. I think that's the coolest Diablo skin, and it's the only one I don't have yet. But yeah, even full health Karen Diablo isn't going to do a lot here, because we have the option of going for Fish or going for Bleed. I think Bleed makes the most sense because they don't have a way of healing anymore. We also have the health advantage on Diablo. We're chilling at 133 while he's at 84. Our Karen's also still in the reserve, so we should just be greatly favored to win from here. But it really came down to, this game was much more about the opening than I believe the later lines of play. Not to say that they didn't matter or don't matter, I just think that the big thing in Tournament Mercenaries is you really got to figure out a way to counteract what your opponent is trying to successfully do on their first turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, and then that kind of dictates the flow of the game. And as long as you can avoid a big swing back with a well-timed bench, letting them get in Karen Diablo, Cookie all at the same time, then it can be pretty easy to just kind of snowball things. One thing I think a lot of people don't think about in Mercenaries is you do have to ask yourself when is the right time to kill a merc, because sometimes double kills can set you up for a bad position next turn by allowing them to get 2 mercs in. But yeah, here we just went for the freeze on Diablo, and he didn't go for speed up, so we were absolutely set there. Got a Fish on the board, and we're just in a great position here. Diablo frozen, so it can't even act this turn, so we can just get the kill off on Diablo this turn. I guess I decide to wait to next turn, because I'm really just not... Diablo can't do anything scary. Fish dies, Diablo's at 8, so Cookie can snipe him, and then we just kill Karen and win. So yeah, it was game 2. Good game. Definitely felt like Eudora was the right pick. I wasn't sure going into it because I didn't know the matchup very well, but it definitely felt like maybe the opponent didn't know the matchup super duper well either, so I think I benefited a little bit from that. So don't be afraid to play a comp you don't know super well. Yeah, obviously you'll probably have better win rate if you're playing something you know inside and out, but sometimes you can get those extra percentage points by having your opponent not know kind of how to play against what you're running. Like my first tournament event, I got against a totally off meta team, and it totally rolled me because I was expecting more Karen Diablo meta stuff. So here, our opponent switches things up. We keep things the same. I'm still rocking Frost Eudora. However, they have transitioned into what I assume is Beast lineup. I kind of suspected this because it is kind of a natural line of thought to be like, hey, my opponent was leading with 2 casters. They also have a 0 HP unit. Let's see, I got my positioning a little better this time. But yeah, King Crush, when I initially started playing Eudora after she was released, beasts were still very popular. And so Eudora definitely felt kind of bad against King Crush, who was just killing her cannons for free. So yeah, I kind of expected the beast opener here, and I thought about changing something up to try and counter it. But the more I thought about it, I felt like I was metagaming myself, and it might just be better to stick with the Frost Eudora, because I don't think it's quite as hard of a counter as our opponent may have thought it is. On paper, yes, I totally see it. You have 2 greens, and Buckla's there too, and it's just a very strong, solid opener. But we have Jaina with her block protecting herself is really huge. Here we can see she lives at 6 health. So, let's see, does he go for the pop here? I think he does. Yeah, okay. So Jaina does get popped on turn 1, but they had to spend a lot of their attacks doing that. And they definitely learned you can't be leaving the Jaina alone, because if you do, she gets out of control really fast, especially if Varden is still in play. So here I make basically a play that I believe ends up winning this game for me. This is still a very scary board, and we're probably going to be losing Jaina this turn. Maybe even Varden as well. So my thought process here is Eudora doesn't really do a lot on this board. She's not super effective against anything, and Crush is going to prevent her from really getting online with the cannons. So I think the best course of action is just to recall her, so that way when we get her out next time, she's a little healthier, gets another free cannon summon, and we can potentially pivot out with better Mercenary against these beasts. Here you can see they actually go for the Rexar summon, which I think ends up screwing them. So they get the kill here, and they actually get kind of lucky in that the freeze lands on the summon. However, that Eudora return play ends up being insane here, because now instead of just Karen Diablo Eudora, I have Karen Diablo Cookie, which he already has a 4-unit board. Now we're making it a 5-unit board if we summon a fish. So Diablo-Karen combo is just going to go absolutely nutso here, and it is going to really clean things up. I think that may have been a mistake from our opponent. I mean, it's easy to tell in hindsight for sure, much less easy to tell in the moment, but I do think summoning a spawn there might not have been the best play, because it really opened them up to getting blown out by Karen Diablo here, and getting that cookie out too was really relevant. Like, the return on the Eudora was super duper huge, and it really showcases the high power of that ability. Because here we see, so I get the buff unit, so that's going to buff my mercenaries, but more importantly, I clear off the Crush and knock his other threats down to where I can clean them off quickly next turn. Cookie gets a snipe in here, which is going to make us even bigger and harder to deal with. Rexar will die as well. He can only send in 1 unit here, so the synergy is going to be limited. But yeah, that Eudora play basically was like the back-breaking moment that wins this game, because getting the cookie out just allowed us to do so much more damage, and it allowed us to buff up our guys and make them much bigger threats going into the end game here. Because these are our last 3 units, and our opponent still, I mean, not technically, we do have Eudora in the back. So our last 4 units, our opponent has 5, but 2 of them are very weak, and we have the advantage in the Karen Diablo cookie kind of mirror. so I do not think we'll have any problem closing out this game. But yeah, this was really fun. I'm definitely going to be doing more of these, hopefully. We do a set of games each week, so I'll definitely be doing more of this real soon. But yeah, they're going to realize here in a minute that Cookie's just too backbreaking. I get another kind of Cookie kill here, buff up my dudes again, and it's just too much. Can't do anything about it. But GG's against Boozosaurus. This was super fun. Definitely going to be posting more of this. But yeah, if you've been liking the Mercenary stuff, definitely stay tuned for more. I'll be having a guide going up soon for Valir coins and all that stuff, and try and get some games with her as soon as possible once I get her grinded up. But yeah, if you've been enjoying it, do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Really helps the channel out a ton. Here we can just see, it's time to go. Combo is nuts. Definitely agree. Combo is very nuts. But yeah, that's it. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.